I'd like to welcome you, our studio audience, to a live taping of our Comcast Cable Community TV program entitled Beyond the Surface. Tonight we bring to you NCCI's fourth quarter media event entitled Christmas, Whose Birthday Is It? How many of you believe that December 25th is the birthday of Christ and that He is the reason for the season? Why wouldn't you? We've been taught that all of our lives. But have you ever stopped to read about the birth of Christ in the scriptures and compare it to the actual events of what Christmas is all about today? Have you ever asked yourself, where did Santa Claus come from? Or the Christmas tree? How about all the lights and candles associated with Christmas? Did gifts get exchanged at his birth? You know, for me, the biggest disappointment of my childhood was when I found out that there was no Santa Claus. My parents had lied to me. How could they? I was too devastated when I found my easy-baked oven underneath the stairs of my basement. If they lied to me about Christmas and Santa Claus, maybe they lied to me about Christ. Maybe He really isn't my salvation. Maybe He really didn't resurrect from the dead. Lies come from Satan, the devil. Yahweh, our Heavenly Father, cannot lie. So think about these things as we go through this season when everybody is scuffling to try and buy that perfect gift. What has Christ to do with this? Tonight we're going to share with you some of the truths about the Messiah and His birth, and then some of the lies about what the whole entire world is doing. It doesn't matter whether you're Christian or of any other religion, because everyone is doing something this time of year. We're going to talk about tonight the biblical truth regarding the Christmas story, paganism of the symbols of Christmas. You're going to hear the sounds and voices of NCCI, and then you'll hear something about the birthday of the sun. You'll hear a rap entitled, "Don't Be a Nimrod." And then you'll hear that Satan is the father and maker of a lie by our elder priest, Yaakov Ben Israel. So thank you for joining us tonight, and I hope you enjoy the program. Good and honest people truly believe that Christ was born in the winter on December 25th. They believe that all the rituals that they take part in during this time of year are because a virgin gave birth to a baby boy on Christmas Day. This couldn't be further from the truth. Honest scholars admit that the customs of Christmas and a December 25th celebration long predate the birth of Christ. Nevertheless, wasn't Yeshua, better known as Jesus Christ, born on December 25th? Let's take a look at what the Bible says about the events surrounding the birth of Christ and unravel the lies that have come to be known as Christmas. Lie number 1, Christ was born in the winter on December 25th. In the New Testament, Luke's gospel tells us exactly what month the Messiah was born in. The reason that most people don't know this is because they have no idea of the calendar system that was used during biblical times. The Hebrew Israelites kept a lunar calendar, not a solar calendar like the one in use today. According to the Bible, in the book of Exodus, chapters 12 and 13, the beginning of the year is in April, not January. It was Julius Caesar who changed the beginning of the year from when God set it up in April, when all life begins and to grow and bud in the earth, to January, the month of cold, death, and darkness. This month was dedicated to Janus, a Roman mythological god who had two faces that looked into your past and into your present and future. Hence, the setting of New Year's resolutions. April 1st soon became known as April Fool's Day. Why? Because those who still honored it as the beginning of the year after the change to January were called April Fools. This information isn't hidden. You can find it in any encyclopedia. Now let's examine the Hebrew calendar and see for yourself the month in which the Messiah was born. We don't know the day, but we can certainly ascertain the month. In the book of Luke, chapter 2, the following events are recorded. In verse 26, the angel Gabriel came to Mary in the 6th month of the year. Take a look at the calendar there. The 6th month of the year, if it began in April, would be what we call September today. It's at the bottom left-hand corner. In verse 36, the scriptures tells us that Mary's cousin Elizabeth was 6 months pregnant with John the Baptist in this month. So she was 6 months pregnant in September. Verse 39 of the book of Luke states that Mary then arose and went into the hill country where her cousin Elizabeth lived and stayed with her for 3 months, or during her first trimester. In other words, she was with Elizabeth from the month of October through the month of December. In verse 56 and 57, the scriptures state that Mary left and went home, and then Elizabeth gave birth to John the Baptist. So who was it that was born in the month of December? It was John the Baptist, not the Messiah. In December, Mary was only 3 months pregnant. So all one has to do is simply count 6 more months, and then you'll know when the Christ child was born. January 1, February 2, March 3, April 4, May 5, and June 6. So June was Mary's 9th month, and that is when she gave birth to the Messiah. There you have it. Christ was born in the early summer, in the month that we call June. And the scriptures backs this up. Here's more evidence of a summer birth. Luke chapter 2 also tells us that Caesar Augustus ordered all citizens of the Roman Empire to travel to their ancestral homes to be taxed. Would a king insist on people traveling throughout the empire in the dead, cold wintertime? No. It doesn't make good business sense for all this worldwide travel to occur in the winter. In addition, would a man allow his wife, who is 9 months pregnant, to travel in the cold of winter? I don't think so. Another reason that is certain that Christ wasn't born in the winter is because the book of Luke chapter 2 verse 8 tells us that when he was born, shepherds were abiding in the field, watching over their flocks by night. In Israel, shepherds have never slept out on the ground with their flocks in December because it is much too cold. In the winter, they led their flocks out in the daytime and brought them back into protected shelters at night. But in the summer months, shepherds would sleep outside with their flocks. All of the above proves without a shadow of a doubt that Christ wasn't born in any of the winter months, and he especially wasn't born on December 25th. Lie number 2. Those present at the so-called nativity scene. Normally when you see a nativity scene, you see Mary, Joseph, Christ, the shepherds, sheep, angels, and 3 wise men. This too is a big lie. All of them weren't there together on the day of his birth. In fact, when Christ was born, only the shepherds came to see him in the manger. The angels appeared to the shepherds, not to Mary and Joseph. The wise men, who were Hebrew Israelites waiting for the birth of the Messiah in the land of Babylon, saw the star that announced his birth, and they traveled from the east to Jerusalem, a 500-mile journey, and asked, "Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him." Matthew chapter 2, verse 2. It took them a long time to make that journey on camel. In fact, the scriptures tells us that when they finally arrived in Jerusalem, Christ was a toddler and his parents were now living in a house. And when they were coming to the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell down and worshiped him. Matthew chapter 2, verse 11. This is why Herod the Great ordered the murder of all the children in Bethlehem that were 2 years old and under. Why up to 2 years if the wise men came on the day of his birth? It's because Herod knew that based on the initial time the wise men said that they had seen the star, that the child would be much older now. He would need to kill babies up to 2 years old in order to ensure the death of the Messiah. Lie number 3. Gifts that were presented to him were birthday gifts. People claim that they exchanged gifts among one another on Christmas because the wise men gave gifts to the Messiah at his birth. However, the gifts they presented weren't birthday gifts at all, since the day of his birth had long since gone. They presented him gifts fit for a king because he was the son of a king, King David. He was of royal lineage, and the gifts were for this reason, not for his birthday. And at his birth, absolutely no one exchanged gifts among one another. So why do people do it today? You'll find out later in this program. Lie number 4. Christ was of European descent. Was Christ born a European? Not at all. In fact, it would have been impossible for him to be a Caucasian. Why? Because according to archaeological finds and secular history, the Hebrew Israelites were a dark-skinned people who resembled the ancient Egyptians. That is why Yahweh told Joseph to take the baby and hide him down in Egypt, Africa, to keep him from being destroyed by Herod. Hiding a European baby down in Africa at that time would have been very hard to do. Just look at the portraits of the Black Madonna and Child, portraits that are still being venerated by Europeans today. If Christ were white, why do they still honor a Black Madonna and Child? The British Museum and the Vatican Library are also full of ancient artifacts that prove that the Hebrew Israelites were black. Here is one such bas-relief found by Henry Layard that shows Jews captured in the city of Lachish during the reign of the Assyrian Empire. Raised dots were used to depict the kinky hair of these Judite men. In fact, even the Catholic Church recently admitted that the Messiah was a man of color, when the 2002 winning art entry of what Christ looked like was a black man with locks. December 25th. Whose birthday is it really? Keep your seats, and you'll soon find out the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and the truth will set you free. Thank you.
Narrated by Samara Israel. Most of us grew up looking at things like evergreen trees, mistletoe, holly, and reindeer as things associated with everybody's favorite time of year, Christmas. But how many of us have actually taken the time to really research what they mean and how they became associated with this festive holiday? The truth is, these symbols of what is today called Christmas all have pagan roots that tie back to the celebrations of Saturnalia, winter solstice, and Yule. To the pagans, the winter solstice is a time for spirits. That's why it's said that people have the Christmas spirit, and it truly is a spirit. Just watch people during this time of year, scurrying around, spreading Christmas cheer. There isn't anywhere you go during this season where Christmas isn't forced upon you. There is Christmas music blaring in every store. Decorations are streamed up everywhere, even in the streets. And there is no need for street lights. There are homes who have enough Santas, reindeer, and snowmen aglow to light up the city, let alone the neighborhood. Cars are decorated with wreaths and lights. Your place of employment has decorations everywhere. People walk around with Santa hats, Christmas sweaters, and jewelry dangling from their necks and ears. Everyone is planning their holiday party. Even the schools dedicate hours, if not the entire day, to their winter party in honor of this Christmas spirit. But let us not get caught up in the hype. Christmas, though it has been sugar-coated and mixed in with so-called religion, is really the winter solstice in full ancient and still thriving pagan glory. Let's look closely at the symbols associated with this holiday season to uncover its pagan roots. You can't have Christmas without Santa. Saint Nicholas was born in Turkey in the 4th century. He became widely known for his generosity to the poor. Though said to be hated and tortured by the early Romans, he was a favorite of the Roman Emperor Constantine, who appointed him a delegate to the Council of Nicaea. Nicholas became the patron saint of the sailors, Sicily, Greece, and Russia, but especially to the children. He was later called Saint Nicholas, which became Sinterklaas, and finally Santa Claus. The modern-day image of Santa Claus was made popular by a poem entitled A Visit from St. Nick, written by Clement C. Moore, which was later published as The Night Before Christmas. This modern look of a chubby man in a red suit got his start with this holiday poem, but it was a world-renowned soft drink company who really glorified him. The Dutch kept the legend of St. Nicholas alive. In the 6th century in Holland, Dutch children would leave their wooden shoes by the fireplace in hopes that they would be filled with a treat. And that's where the modern-day Christmas stocking came about. Let's look at the mistletoe and holly. The Druids and the Celts of Germany used mistletoe to celebrate the winter solstice, in hopes that luck they felt this mistletoe had would bring back the sun. They would gather up this evergreen plant and decorate their homes with it. They believed this plant had powers of fertility since it survived the entire winter. The Scandinavians also associated this plant with peace and harmony and associated it with their goddess of love, Frigga, which, by the way, is where we get Friday. Hence, hanging mistletoe meant you had to give the person you met there a kiss. In ancient times, holly was considered magical and sacred because of its shiny leaves and ability to bear fruit in the winter. It was often believed that if you hung holly over your bed, you would have good dreams. At one time, holly was connected to the mythical Holly King, patron king of the winter solstice. As the winter solstice festivals evolved, holly remained a part of holiday celebrations, and along with ivy and mistletoe, it remains a popular form of decorative Christmas greenery today. The Christmas tree was made popular by the Germanic Celts in honor of the winter solstice. They would decorate an evergreen tree and fill it with candles to usher in the return of the sun. It was said that the evergreen tree brought luck and fertility because it too stays green year-round. But hear the word of Yahweh. Learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. For the customs of the people are vain. For one cuts a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with an axe. They deck it with silver and with gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not. They are upright like the palm tree, but speak not. They must needs be born, because they cannot go. Be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, neither also is it in them to do good. But they are altogether brutish and foolish. The stock is a doctrine of vanities. The custom of exchanging gifts at Christmas time stems from an ancient Roman practice. During the Saturnalia, the Romans presented their emperor and each other with tokens of good luck called strenae. At first, these had little material value, being merely symbols of the donor's good wishes. Later, it became customary to give precious gifts including clothing and objects made of gold or silver. Some say the North or Pole Star is considered the navel of the universe and the gate of heaven. Some believe it to be the very throne of God, offering hope and directions to those lost in the darkness of this world. The morning star, which some pagans say is the planet Venus, but whose scriptures call Lucifer, is even more to be considered the light of Christ, which shines in the darkness. Astronomers have no explanation for the appearance of this star, but according to the Bible, wise men followed the mysterious star of the east to worship the newborn King of the Jews. The sleigh that Santa rides on came into play from the "'Twas Night Before Christmas" poem. The legend also extended in Holland, where children believed St. Nicholas would ride through the air, checking on children who misbehaved. And the reindeer is what was noted that drove Santa around. The ever-popular Rudolph was added to the flock of reindeer in the late 1930s by Robert May's tune, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Ornaments are another ancient tradition of the Germanic people for their celebration of the winter solstice. When they brought in the evergreen trees, they would decorate them with candles, bread and fruit, dolls, guns, and jewelry. Then the Germans invented the glass blower, and the modern-day Christmas ornament was created. Poinsettias are native to Mexico. They were named after America's first ambassador to Mexico, Joel Poinsett. The Mexicans believed that the plant resembled the Star of Bethlehem. Thus, the poinsettia became associated with the Christmas season. The wreath also dates back to pagan origins. It was fastened like the Norseman's sun wheel. The Celts would make it out of holly, the evergreen symbol of luck and fertility. This wreath later became a part of the Roman Catholic tradition and was called the Advent wreath. They say that it is circular to symbolize the eternity of God, who has no beginning and no end. Caroling began back with the Celts of Germany. They sang in the streets songs of the return of the sun. Later, when Christianity latched on, carolers went from door to door, and the tradition then was for you not to send a caroler away empty-handed. Today in America, the closest we come to caroling are the Christmas choir concerts that are presented from major theaters or children's schools. Then there is the gingerbread house. Gingerbread has been a holiday tradition for thousands of years. It was originally eaten during winter solstice festivals, but the tradition of the house made of gingerbread originated in Germany. Gingerbread houses soon became very popular and remain so today. There are all kinds of symbols that have always been associated with pagan worship that are now associated with its imitator, Christmas. Thank you.
Into the Shalom. Good afternoon, everyone. Christmas, whose birthday is it? With all of the tradition, with all the legacy, and with all of our childhood memories, have we ever thought, ever researched, whose birthday is it? Well, if we did, we would find that Christmas, the highly celebrated day of December 25th, is not and has never been the birthday of the Messiah of the Scripture. Christ's date of birth was not even in the winter, but someone else's certainly was. That someone was responsible for one of the first recorded uprisings, the first mutinies against Yahweh and those that followed him. His name was Nimrod. Nimrod was described in Genesis 10 and 9 as a mighty hunter before Yahweh. Genesis 11 and 4 told us of he and his followers' intended plans for supremacy. And they said, "Let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto the heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." Nimrod's attempt at making this great name did not end after his plan was foiled. Both Nimrod and his followers were determined through reality or myth to make his name great. Nimrod's legend continued as he, at the demise of his father, married his mother, Semiramis. And at Nimrod's death, Semiramis told all of Nimrod's death and his rebirth as a full-grown tree. This day of death and rebirth was December 25th. Nimrod began to be worshipped in this tree form as a god. This tree, its worship, and its adornment was spoken of in Jeremiah chapter 10, verses 2 through 4. Thus saith Yahweh, learn not the way of the heathen, for the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, they deck it with silver and gold. This Nimrod worship grew, and he soon became to be worshipped as a sun god, while Semiramis became to be worshipped as the mother of God. Unfortunately, this myth did not end in Babylon. As nations intermingled through conquests and contracts, this worship of the sun god continued. His name was often changed to suit the nation, but the customs and traditions associated with his worship has continued largely unchanged. As this form of pagan worship was introduced to the Romans, it was quickly adopted. By the time through this sun god's name had been changed to Mithras. This sun god Mithras was thought to be the light of the world, and the religion referred to as Mithraism was considered to be a man's or a military religion. The Romans believed that it was Mithras that brought them victory in their conquests, and sacrifices to him prior to a battle was always mandatory. Mithras' birthday was also on December 25th. This date was so popular, as with Nimrod, the date of 25th, it has to do with the signs of the zodiac and the strength of the sun. December 24th, being at that time the shortest day of the year, marking the death of the sun, the following day, December 25th, marked the rebirth and the regaining of the strength of their sun god. This astrology included the sun crossing the equator at such a point that included the zodiac sign of Taurus, the bull. This crossing point to point, created the symbol of the cross. This cross symbol had been in use since Babylonian time and was continued with the Romans. The cross symbol covered all of their shields during battle, so that they held their god Mithra before them for protection in war. Emperor Constantine saw this vision of a sun with the cross beneath it. This cross, or crux, worn by the Crusaders was fashioned identically to that used by the Imperial Rome and Babylon before it. The cross is simply the symbol of the sun god. There is no Hebrew word or root translated cross anywhere in the Old Testament scriptures. Each of the 24 times that the Greek word saturos is found in the New Testament, English Bibles mistranslate pole or stake as cross. The first one to do this was a Roman Catholic translator whose true desire was to merge the Mithras cherished symbol into the church. Mithras worshippers also baptized newborn children and followed this action with marking the youth's forehead with the symbol of the cross, just like which is done in Catholicism and Christianity today. Their holy weekday was Sunday, held sacred because it truly was the day of the sun, Sunday, their God's day. The leader of their rituals was referred to as Father. The highest ranking father was referred to as Papa or Pope. This Pope was marked by his staff, a pronounced ring, and a pointed hat, just as today's Pope. Their mass included chanting bells, candles, incense, and holy water, just as it is in Catholicism today. Even all of the 7 sacraments of Catholicism are the exact duplicates of those that were acknowledged in Mithras sacraments. The use of halos in Christianity today also directly descends from Mithraism. The halo represented the glow around the head of their sun god. and his lesser gods. This is why we see Christian art that promotes pictures of the Christ with a halo around his head. He is seen as this sun god, unknowingly. Catholicism, Freemasonry, all have their roots in Mithraism. Mithraism was worshipped in a secretive fashion. Only men were initiated, and both initiations and services were held in dark underground caves that involved sacrifice. They covered the walls of these caves with secret paintings depicting their god Mithras slaying the bull. This would be that same bull of Taurus in astrology. This is much like the cave dwelling that members of the secret society of the Skull and Bones held meetings at the elite Yale University, where America's second-time president is also a member, Bush. Many of these Mithras temples are still in existence today throughout Europe. Many Christian churches were even built directly on top of these pagan temples. These caves were often referred to as grottos. Notre Dame University is popular for its sports, and it is also popular for its grotto, which they built in order to imitate those grottos in Europe. These Christians call it the Cave of Candles, where they hold many candles throughout the cave. And they come to this cave to pray, just like in Mithraism. These people are referred to as Christians. The sad reality is that all of these types of actions within Christianity are completely accepted. And each of them, when questioned, are constantly either explained away or ignored. Each of us must make a choice as to whether we will follow the true teachings of the Hebrew Scriptures of the Bible or continue to follow the myths that are made up by man. We must choose to follow Yahweh or to follow Nimrod or Mithras or Zeus or Jupiter or Jesus. All of these are pagan deities, all of them. Yahweh has but one way, his way. Matthew 7, verse 14 and 13. Enter ye at the strait gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be at which go thereat. Because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Please, by all means, begin by choosing the end of this myth called Christmas. Thank you.
Jeremiah 10 ain't good enough for you. Realizing nothing under the sun is new. With this Christmas spirit not to honor Christ, but to sell merchandise. December 25th, 12 days from what my true love gave to me was a January 6th pagan feast. Oh, you Nimrod with your evergreen trees. Pick once a year, the homeless you feed. Pucker up, it's only mistletoe, sacred to the sun. Worship on the winter solstice. Matthew 15:9, the vision of men and intrusion. Y'all take my hand from this delusion. Oh, Saint Nick, not a fictional person. Satan is crafty, he needs no rehearsing. Free me from the bondage of tradition. For once is real, will you listen? Don't be a Nimrod, don't be a Nimrod. Serve is a God. Don't be a Nimrod, don't be a Nimrod. What do you serve is a God. Endure sound doctrines ain't convenient. Last days is here, can't you see it? The word Christ may be in the word Christmas, but he didn't start it. It's a pagan tradition. Drink out of the fornication cup with the Pope. At one point, I was half of Satan's dope. Yah has many festivals that you're supposed to celebrate. No mention in the script. That's his birth date, silent night, holy night, worship of mother and child. Keyword incest, Nimrod, worship about us slaves are free on the holidays. But that don't mean you gotta learn the master way. I pray y'all wake up from your slumber. Lake of fire is real, and you will be used for lumber. What the saying? Ignorance is bliss. You ain't hear me? Going on you and your Christmas list. Don't be a Nimrod, don't be a Nimrod. What do you serve as a God? Don't be an Nimrod, don't be a Nimrod. What do you serve is a God. Don't be a Nimrod, don't be a Nimrod. What do you serve is a God. Don't be a Nimrod, don't be a Nimrod. What do you serve is a God. Don't be a Nimrod, don't be a Nimrod. What do you serve is a God. Don't be a Nimrod, don't be a Nimrod. What do you serve is a God.
Say peace to each and every one of you, and welcome you to this program that our media department has put together for us in these crucial times that we are coming up on, known as holidays that man are dealing with. From the Garden of Eden, we understand that Lucifer, through his children, the sons of men, Lucifer has been the factory of lies and paganism among the nations. This is why, for the past 6,000 years, the nation have produced a pyramid of pagan deities that are still being worshipped and served on the worldwide scale this very day as we sit here. But to keep the light of the truth in the earth, that Yahweh's name would be magnified and that his holy word would be preserved, Yahweh raised up our fathers, the Hebrews of the 12 tribes of Israel, that he would be a light in this earth of darkness among the children of men today. But because our fathers love to be as the other nation, who worship all the host of the seen universe, along with the gods that was conjured up in the hands of men, Yahweh cast our fathers out of our earthly inheritance, and we became slaves and captives to Lucifer's children because of the paganisms of the nations around us that we, our fathers, began to practice. And these things are written in the Holy Legacy called the Bible, but people don't read the Bible today. What they do is let people talk to them about it. And by learning the ways of strangers, our nation of people have been systematically taught to worship and serve the gods of the nations, and today, when we look out, we are still being rejected by the nation. But let me read something to you here that was told our people by Moses in the book of Deuteronomy, and we can see how we've got to these things. Deuteronomy chapter 4, and I'm going to pick this up at Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 9. It says, only take heed to yourself and keep your soul diligently, lest you forget the things which your eyes have seen, and lest they depart from your heart all the days of your life. But teach them to your sons and your sons' son, especially the day that you stood before Yahweh, your Elohim in Horeb, when Yahweh said unto me, gather me all the people together, and I will make them hear my words, that they may learn to fear me all the days that they may live upon the earth, and that they may teach them to their children. I'm going to skip down here to verse 15. It says, therefore take good heed unto yourself, for you saw no matter similitude on the day that Yahweh spake unto you at Horeb out of the midst of the fire. Lest you corrupt yourselves and make your graven images. Now, we see these graven images now. We don't want to admit it, but we go in these churches and we see them crosses, don't we? What a graven image today is today are effigies. Man has got too smart to build him a little man like that little Buddha, that big fat Buddha that the Asians got. See, what man did was this. Man made effigies, and man took these effigies and put them on his buildings to represent his religions. This is why when you drive down the street, every time you see a cross on the place, you say that's a Christian church, right? Well, the cross is a symbol of death. The type cross that we see, the Messiah wasn't even crucified on anything like that. He was crucified like this, you see. But we got that from Emperor Constantine and Pope St. Leo at the edict of Milan in 312 A.D., and today these things are prevalent among us. Even some of our people have went out and joined the Antichrist, which are the Muslims in the Middle East, and when we see that crescent moon and that star, we know that that is the nation of Islam. And Yahweh told us don't make anything to represent him. But listen to this. Lest you corrupt yourselves and make unto you a graven image, the similitude of any figure, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any beast that is upon the earth, and the likeness of any winged fowl that fly in the air, the likeness of anything that creeps upon the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in the waters beneath the earth. Now, we see today this fish symbol on the back of them cars, right? And we know that's a symbol of Christianity, right? Y'all know who used them things? Have you ever done any research and find out where these symbols that we so freely use come from? Huh? They came from the ideas of men. The first Christians and the people that called themselves Christians, well, they weren't the first people that was called Christian. What they did, they called us Christians first at Antioch. That was in Syria. So that was among the Gentiles, and the Gentiles called us Christians. But if you check the book of Acts 20 years later, Paul said he was a Jew of Tarsus. And today, they call me a whole lot of other names, but I'm still a Jew that's living here in America. At least you should lift up your eyes into the heavens, and when you see it's the sun, the moon, and the stars, and even all the host of heaven, should be driven to worship them and serve them, which Yahweh your Elohim has divided into all the nations upon under the heaven. Well, let's look at that. We know that they changed the Sabbath day from Saturday to Sunday, right? Now, this is Lucifer's work. But why do we go to church on Sunday? We know that Christ was not born on December 25th. That's the day of the winter solstice, right? So why did we celebrate his birthday December 25th, knowing that he was born in the summer? Then we have Easter come up, right? Okay, now, if you notice, Easter, my birthday comes on the 12th of May every year. Why don't, Christ was resurrected on the 16th day of the month of April. Why don't we celebrate the 16th day of the month of April? Easter got that rabbit in it. It jumps around on the calendar, don't it? Right? And we all know that Santa Claus is a God, right? He know when you're sleeping. He know when you're awake. He know when you're bad or good, so be good for goodness sake, right? He got reindeer that fly. Okay, the first Santa Claus that we got in this country, it was an elf, a little leprechaun. Then Coca-Cola gave us the one that we have today. And today, from the month of November up until December, what do? We go buy gifts and give them to everyone, right? Well, we need to go back and read those things because none of these things are mentioned in the Bible. The word Easter was mentioned in the New Testament simply because the people were keeping Astaroth at that time, which was a pagan holiday that they got from the nation. But when you look right at it, we as a people, we've grabbed onto the nations and we don't do the research to find out why we are Baptist, Methodist, Seventh-day Adventists, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Muslims and so forth, when Christ was a Jew. Christ himself said salvation is of the Jews. But why is it today that people tell me you got to be a Christian to attain salvation? Yet these same Christians are taking prayer out of school. They're taking God out of different things out of school. They're taking the 10 Commandments out of church. And the 10 Commandments was the only law that was spoken by the mouth of Yahweh himself. See? And when we get in the New Testament, if you read Acts, it's the first 30 years of the church. And Acts, the book of Acts tell you that the apostles was keeping all of the holy days that Yahweh told us to keep in Leviticus 23rd chapter. If we didn't have to, if we are not under the law, we under grace, from the way that the nations interpreted that statement to us, ask yourself one question. How can Yahweh judge the earth without law? You got law out on the street 35 miles an hour, right? You got a law that governs your households, right? But God don't have any law. All you have to do is have faith and believe in this pagan man that they come up with that they call Jesus, whose name was Yahshua, who was the Son of God. When we look at the things that this man Jesus had to say, Jesus, as they call him, told us, until heaven and earth pass, not one jot or one tittle pass from the law until all be fulfilled. And guess what? The prophets hasn't been fulfilled, but they keep you out of the prophets because you as a people will not remember why our people saying, swing low, sweet chariot. I looked over Jordan and what did I see? A band of angels coming after me, right? Peace. Yahweh be with you.
Beyond the Surface presents Christmas, Whose Birthday Is It? Part 2. Do you observe Christmas because you think it's Christ's birthday? Was he born on or anywhere near December 25th in the wintertime? If Yeshua, better known as Jesus, lived on earth today, would he celebrate Christmas? History shows that Christmas predates Christ by many generations, centuries even. Most people are shocked to discover that the origins of this popular holiday are laced with paganism. We should sit up and take notice of remarks from a popular American comedian and actor, Drew Carey. At a White House Correspondents' Dinner on May 5th of this year, Mr. Carey said, "I read the Bible a lot, you know, and it's just crazy the way we celebrate holidays in the United States. I found out just recently that there are so many religious holidays we celebrate that have nothing to do with the Bible at all. Real famous holidays, like Christmas. Christmas has nothing to do with the Bible. The birth of Christ is in the Bible, but not Christmas. Gifts, that's not there either, at least not on his birthday. And there's no place where it says, 'Celebrate my birthday,' says Jesus. The tree is in the Bible, but it warns us that cutting down a tree, bringing it into our homes, standing it up, and decorating it is something that heathens do. Christmas is a pagan holiday that the Romans invented that we just do. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. But everywhere you go, I'm telling you, I've seen this so many times. You see a nativity scene and there's baby Jesus, the manger, sheep, shepherds, Mary, Joseph, and Santa Claus right in the middle. Who's he? Mary's birthing coach? Santa Claus has nothing to do with anything." Drew Carey actually brought up a serious side of Christmas, that history exposes this holiday as nothing more than a pagan observance dressed up in Christian garb. Today on Beyond the Surface, we'll explore the origins of this popular holiday and unwrap the numerous lies associated with it. As we grow through the program, we'll hope that you begin to understand these biblical and historical truths and leave here with a renewed interest to research this information for yourself. Ultimately, we hope that you will stand up for the truth and stop participating in these pagan rituals as Christ would want you to do. Always remember that it is the devil, Lucifer, who is the father and maker of a lie. And if Christmas is nothing but lies, then Satan is the one who started it. My name is Tamar Yisrael, and we hope that you enjoy this program. Thank you.
Saturnalia is perhaps the most important influence on the holiday that we've come to know today as Christmas. Saturnalia is the ancient Roman festival in honor of Saturn, the god of agriculture. Ancient pagan harvest festivals were numerous in the ancient days and are also at the root of the so-called American Thanksgiving feast, which was also celebrated in December in times past. Saturnalia, however, is responsible in large measure for determining the selection of the date, December 25th, and the nature of the Christmas celebration up until Victorian times. Although the dates of the Roman Saturnalia vary, Saturnalia was celebrated originally on December 17th. Soon it expanded to the 17th and the 18th, with Ops, or Opalia, that was celebrated on the 19th and 20th. Opalia, known as Ceres or Demeter, was the wife of Saturn, according to mythology. The goddess of plenty seen pictured here with her fruit and her grain. For the Greeks, Saturn's counterpart was Cronus, pictured here with his wife, as the myth goes, about to devour his son to prevent him from competing for his father's throne. During the days of the Roman Empire, Saturnalia was extended to a week's time, December 17th until the 24th. There were a number of associated pagan Roman festivals in the month of December. Consuelia, for example, the sowing of seed season festival, on December 15th it was celebrated. Days Juvenalis, or the Day of the Juvenile, the coming of the age for young men, so-called, in mid-December. Most cultures in the Mediterranean had religious festivals around the winter solstice. For millennia, the ancient Egyptians celebrated the birth and rebirth of the sun at this time. It was called the Feast of Sol Invictus, the Day of the Unconquered Sun. This December 25th celebration was kept faithfully by Roman soldiers, like the Emperor Constantine, who converted to Christianity due to a vision he claimed to have seen in the sun, and later changed the worship of the Sabbath day to Sunday, the first day of the week. Sunday was the day on which he worshiped his sun god and not the Son of God. The origins of the Roman Saturnalia was a harvest festival associated with late seed sowing and the winter solstice coming right on its heels. In fact, one of the most ancient celebrations predating back to the days of Babylon was the Feast of Vermilia, the winter solstice celebrated on December 25th by most cultures around the Mediterranean. From Babylon sprang all false worship, including mystery cults, Mithraism, the Greek and Roman mythologies, Eastern modern religions, and even today's New Age movement. Ancient sources, such as the Epic of Gilgamesh and other unearthed archaeological records, indicate from Mesopotamia and Egypt, verifies the Bible that Nimrod, the great-grandson of Noah, through the seed of Ham, the Africans founded the First World Empire and built the Tower of Babel. Those writings also declare that Nimrod married his mother, Semiramis. After Nimrod's death, it was Semiramis who promoted the dogma that he had returned after death as a full-grown evergreen tree that sprang up from a dead tree stump overnight and left presents under the tree. It is the reason why we are warned of the vanities of Christmas and the Christmas tree. For the customs of the people are vain. One cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of a workman, with the axe. They deck it with silver and with gold, and they fasten it with nails and hammers, that it move not. Giving birth to a son on the anniversary of Nimrod's death, December 25th was the date on which Semiramis claimed that the newborn child was actually Nimrod reincarnated. Deifying himself and herself in the process, this was the origin of the worship of the Queen of Heaven spoken of numerously in the Bible. The children gather wood, and the fathers kindle fire, and the women knead their dough to make cakes to the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto other gods, that they may provoke me to anger. Do they provoke me to anger, said Yahweh? Do they not provoke themselves to the confusion of their own faces? Jeremiah 7:18-19. The worship of the mother and child through this unholy triad was Semiramis and Tammuz to the Sumerians of Mesopotamia, Astaroth and Baal to the Canaanites, Isis and Osiris to Egyptians, and Mary and Jesus to Christians. Judges 2:13 says, "For they forsook Yahweh and served Baal and Astaroth." The similarities between Saturnalia and modern Christmas are too numerous to be denied. Saturnalia was focused on merrymaking, which was the reason why the words merry and jolly are used almost exclusively at Christmas time. Feasts abounded during these days of celebration, with continual eating and drinking of alcoholic beverages and wine, which was especially important to the Romans due to Bacchus, their god of wine and plenty. They served an array of rich but unclean food like sea hedgehogs, shellfish, and of course, the pig. The Romans indulged, giving themselves up to wild folly. These are the same features of modern-day Christmas, but ancient Saturnalia in early Christmas merrymaking was much more like Mardi Gras, which was a celebration on the last day of Saturnalia. Accia Laurentia, also called the goddess Lupa because of her loose moral ways, was honored on this day, giving mortal men the rights to engage in amoral activities like orgies and sexual partner swapping and homosexuality. By the way, the word lupa means to be naked. The old Roman calendar, on this day, it appeared as the day Brumalia, the shortest day of the year. The celebration of ancient Christmas was downright licentious. It is the reason why the New England Puritans wanted to ban the celebration of Christmas. As Roman culture became increasingly licentious, so did Saturnalia, with cross-dressing, masquerades, and gambling. Another feature was that of a mock king, the lord of misrule. He would be crowned. Saturnalia was a public and a commercial holiday where the government, schools, and businesses all closed, including the law courts and the Senate. People of all classes, the rich and the poor, were considered equal, and house slaves were actually served by their masters. Debts and sentences were forgiven during this time. Battles and wars were even for a period suspended, as we have also seen displayed with our modern-day Christmas celebrations. Young children might even head the family, which was important in patrician Rome during these backward celebrations. Wreaths, garlands, and evergreens were widely used in Rome. Holly was a favorite because of the colorful red berries and deep green leaves, since the colors for this festival was red, green, and white, simply the same as it is today. Flames were an important feature of both Christmas and Saturnalia, where candles, Yule logs, fireplace hearths, and bonfires were kindled to drive off evil spirits and to rekindle the new solar year. Gifts and presents of all sorts were exchanged in Rome during Saturnalia. Dolls, or little claiborne-like images of pastry known as sigillaria, were popular gifts to boys and girls. Fruit, papers, and candles were popular gifts to give to friends. The family was also very important for Saturnalia, as it is for today's celebrations in Christmas. The Romans would rest and relax with family and close friends, renew bonds, and reminisce about old experiences. People participated in gaming and jokes and letting loose, with frequent partying where they wore paper or soft hats at banquets to signify the informality of the event. In England, these hats are an important feature still today of the family Christmas dinner. In America, the paper hats can be found at family birthday celebrations and are important to New Year's celebrations globally. Music and dancing was key to Saturnalia merrymaking, which is yet another as well as our New Year's celebration. Christmas is perceived as a religious celebration, with the community coming together to spiritually honor the infant deity, the Christ, when in fact, Christmas is simply pagan Saturnalia and Brumalia feasts to honor numerous reigning deities born at Babylon. Begotten by a mortal man, Nimrod, the Christmas spirit is indeed provoked by a spirit, but according to history, archaeology, and scripture, the Christmas spirit is an ancient lying spirit sent to deceive all mankind. Partake not of her sacrificial table, and drink not from her intoxicating cup. Thank you.
More homicides and suicides at this time of year. Could these be the people that are filled with this Christmas cheer? 'Tis the season to be jolly, the time with the most burglaries and armed robberies. Capitalism victims 1 foot in and out of poverty, just caught up, raptured by folly. Good Christians indulging in Mithraic traditions. Some already know, some don't and won't listen. This time of year, I really hate it, but for most of the world, it's eagerly anticipated. The most depressing season. True, there are parties and celebration, but revelry is the reason. Commercialism, larger profit margins, big spending, retail operations, late November marketing gimmicks. Every TV show, every single commercial, happy holidays, subliminal rehearsal. They say, but it's for the kids. Adults who won't like to be lied to tell fabricated stories of a so-called saint named Nick, who served in the Roman Catholic city, the bishop famous for generosity, believed to give gifts to the children on the eve of December the 6th. Through myth, now accepted and accredited with Christmas. In Norse mythology, Santa's profile is Bacchus Woden, a bearded Catholic bishop-like god of the Romans, giving presents, merry and pleasant, on Saturnalia to honor Rome's goddess of fertility. For some pagans, swine sacrifices were made. Their heads were the decor for the evergreen tree. We're warned of these customs in Jeremiah 10, vain and be not dismayed at the work of the hands of the workmen. And this Christmas, wait, that's a word unfound in the Bible. Neither was it kept by the apostles or disciples. Natalis Invicti Solis, birthday of the unconquered Sun, December 25th. On this day, long before the Messiah, people exchanged gifts. Jesus, the reason for the season, it's a double myth. Honoring the solstice, Yahshua the Anointed wasn't born on this date. Mary was 3 months when Elizabeth gave birth, so that would make it around May or June. Too soon the new moon is forgotten, as well as the shepherds who kept their flocks in the field. In December, the weather is cold and rainy in Israel. For them to have a newborn in a manger at this time just doesn't sit well. In those days, no reckoning of time as we know it. No calendars or watches, no clocks to show it. So what time is it now? It's the time to get it straight. Pure lies like the separation of church and state. My county job quick to give me a 2-week break. They make sure I have time to observe if I so choose. But it's not Yah's feast located in Leviticus 23, and I'm no fool. It is better to give than to receive, and that's true. But wise men gave gifts to Christ because he was born a king. They didn't give gifts to Joseph or Yahshua's mother, and neither did they exchange gifts between each other. And now that we've explored and planted seeds, who will choose the less chosen route? In that case, it's on us, and we must search. If it's not in the scriptures, whose birthday is it, and what is it worth? Thank you.
The Winter Solstice, narrated by Samara Israel. It's that time of year again. Peace on earth, goodwill toward man. Everybody is shopping and decorating, feasting and making merry. It's time to celebrate the birth of Christ, right? I bet most people who partake in this festive season really think they know what it's all about. But do they? Do you? Let's unwrap the mystery of the Christmas celebration to uncover whose birthday it really is. The winter solstice has been a time of celebration for centuries. People and cultures around the world have honored this season as the beginning of the rebirth of the invincible sun. That's the sun as in S-U-N, not S-O-N, as most people erroneously believe. Solstice by definition means either of 2 times of the year when the sun is at the greatest distance from the celestial equator. The winter solstice occurs about December 21st, the shortest day of the year. Ancient people were farmers and hunters. They depended heavily on the seasons for their livelihood. So many, because of this, reverenced and even worshiped the sun, which they considered the source of their bounty. The Norsemen of Europe called the sun Jul, which means wheel. They believed this wheel changed the seasons. This is the same pagan sun wheel that is deeply rooted in Catholicism. It was from this wheel that the word Yule, as in Yule log, was derived. The Norsemen would light bonfires in celebration of the winter solstice to usher back in the return of the sun. To show how important this celebration was to its followers and how deeply this people are rooted into this paganism, let's look at the steps they took to capture the moment. In Ireland, there is a standing stone called the Newgrange. It was constructed as the ultimate winter solstice marker in its effort to capture the rebirth of the sun. Each year, in its central chamber, the dawn of the winter solstice is marked when a beam of light stretches across the base of the chamber. The Egyptians, or the ancient Africans, also took on this custom and built many pyramids to welcome the rebirth of the sun, their chief sun god being Ra. Where do you think the design of the Christian church comes from? You know, the pyramid-shaped stained glass dome with the steeple on top representing a phallic symbol, which is male genitalia. All of it stems from the ancient pagan rituals. Incidentally, why do you think many gather in church early in the morning on Easter Sunday for sunrise service? This is the time of the spring equinox when the day's hours and the night hours are exactly equal, bringing the sun closer and closer to the earth. The full rebirth of the sun marked in honor of many pagan gods and goddesses like Eostra, which is Easter, the goddess of fertility. The ancient Germanic tribe called the Celts celebrated this pagan sun-worshiping ritual year after year. They even began to mix in some of the customs of the Roman Saturnalia. Men would dress as women and women as men. Masters would dress as slaves and slaves as masters. Other cultures known to celebrate winter solstice are the Native Americans or Indians, Pakistan, and Tibet. In Iran, some families hold a vigil called Yalda, where they stay up all night keeping the fires burning to help the sun battle darkness. The customs of the winter solstice should sound familiar. Let's go over a few of them. Decorating homes with greenery, bringing in evergreen trees and festive decorations such as wreaths, lights, candles, and harvest foods like corn, nuts, and fruits. Feasting with family and friends. Gift giving and taking time off from work. Does any of that sound familiar? Is that not modern day Christmas? But as we've seen, Christmas is not at all modern day. Even the so-called Jews added Hanukkah as their winter celebration and honor it in just the same way Christians honor Christmas, with Christmas trees, gifts, and the like. One writer suggests that maybe this was a merry coincidence. Christmas has been associated with the winter solstice festival since the 4th century, when Roman emperors such as Constantine, who was a devout pagan sun worshiper, decreed that Christ's birthday would be celebrated on December 25th. He and the Roman Catholics thought it wise to unite Christianity with pagan customs for popularity's sake, so the early Christians quite consciously chose to unite with the pagan sun holiday for the celebration of Mithra's birth. The only thing they did was add Christ's name to it as an act of justification. And so the customs were blended together and Christianized. The solstice was also used as a weather predictor and to help the seers with their visions. In more recent tradition, a white Christmas is said to mean a prosperous new year, while a green, cloudy, or hot Christmas is said to fill the churchyard with dead bodies. Remember, Yahweh said, "You shall have no other gods before me." And he also said, "You shall not make unto you any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down yourself to them, nor serve them." I know what some of you are thinking. You're saying to yourselves, "Well, that's not what it means to me. I'm not honoring any pagan god. But what you need to realize is that you really are. Everything associated with the customs of Christmas are really the customs of pagan rituals and celebrations that are in honor of pagan mythological gods. For us to say, well, I may be following the traditions, but the meaning for me is to honor Christ and his birth, we are admitting that we have fallen into the plan of the heathen who consciously chose to deceive you by falsely adding Christ's name to something that has nothing at all to do with him. These pagan rituals were honored thousands of years before the birth of Christ. Listen to the words of Yahweh. Yet, says the house of Israel, the way of Yahweh is not equal. O house of Israel, are not my ways equal? Are not your ways unequal? Therefore I will judge you, O house of Israel, every one according to his ways, says Yahweh Elohim. Repent and turn yourselves from all your transgressions, so iniquity shall not be your ruin. Cast away from you all your transgressions, whereby you have transgressed, and make you a new heart and a new spirit. For why will you die, O house of Israel? There is nothing wrong with spending time with your family, but let's keep it in perspective. Paul said, but I say that the things with which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils, and not to Yah. And I would not that you should have fellowship with devils. You cannot drink the cup of Yah and the cup of devils. You cannot be partakers of Yahweh's table and of the table of devils. Yahweh says, for as much as we are the offspring of Yah, we ought not to think that the Godhead is like unto gold or silver or stone, graven by art and man's device. And the times of this ignorance Yahweh winked at, but now commands all men everywhere to repent. Hear therefore, O Israel, and observe to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily, as Yahweh Elohim of your fathers has promised you, in the land that flows with milk and honey. Thank you.
That's the most beautiful thing right during Christmas celebration, the swine is still the main sacrifice offered to their many gods. The main entree is decorated with pineapples, olives, cloves, glazed with sugar. The ham is trimmed with an array of colorful fruits fit for a king's meal. Throughout history, the swine, aka pig, has been used to defile the laws of our Creator Yahweh. Yahweh states in Leviticus 11:44, for I am Yahweh your Elohim, and you shall sanctify yourself, and you shall be holy, for I am holy. Also in Leviticus 11 states, you should not eat of them that chew the cud, or them that divide the hoof. Leviticus 11:7 says, the swine, though he divides the hoof and be clothed foot, you should not eat the cud, he is unclean to you. Because of Yahweh's love for the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Israel is a holy nation unto Yahweh, who has been given the spirit of truth. Let us reveal how the swine was used to desecrate Yahweh's holy temple and to pollute his holy nation. During the conquest of Jerusalem by the Romans in 175 BC, Antiochus, who was called Epiphanes, the illustrious one, took Jerusalem by force and held there for 3 years and 3 months. Now Antiochus was not satisfied either with taking Jerusalem or by his pillage of the holy vessels of Yahweh, or the great slaughter of the tribe of Judah. By Antiochus, Epiphanes, being overcome with his violent passion, he compelled the Jews to dissolve the laws of observing the Sabbath and the holy feast, to keep the infants uncircumcised, and to sacrifice the swine upon Yahweh's altar in the Holy of Holies sanctuary. Against all who opposed Antiochus, they were put to death. In Daniel 8, verses 11 through 12, Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away,
and the place of his sanctuary was cast down, and a host was given him against the daily sacrifice by the reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground. And Daniel 11:31, an arm shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that made desolate. The abomination at this time of the Maccabees was the sacrifice of the swine in the holy sanctuary. Now after the Maccabees defeated Antiochus and moved the Gentile altar, a rededication of the temple was performed by the Jews. The Jews called the celebration Hanukkah. The Roman deity was Janus, the god of the doors and gates, and also beginning, which the Romans believed ensured good ending. Janus had a door facing east and west for the beginning and the end of the day. Between them stood the statues with two faces, glazing in opposite directions. In every home, the morning prayer was addressed to Janus, as the god of the beginning was publicly worshipped on the first day of January, New Year's Day. Today, in the city of Atlanta, the annual Christmas tradition is the lighting of the richest Christmas tree. At one time, there was another tradition. What was that tradition? This tradition was for young and old. The popular tradition was the riding of the pink pig. For years, parents brought their children to the downtown riches to ride that famous pink pig. If you lived in Metro Atlanta and celebrated Christmas, there's probably a picture of you and that famous pink pig. On December the 25th, the holy meals will be served to billions of people all over the world. Turkey was the bird for Thanksgiving meal, and the Christmas sacrifice is not complete until the meal is served with that decorative ham, or that pig's guts called chitlins, pig's feet, neck bones, and other assorted parts of the pig. Again, Yahweh said to you through Peter, "Be ye holy, for I am holy." 1 Peter 1:16. We are to be a living sacrifice. How can we be acceptable unto our Creator if we are filled with the swine's flesh, bacon, ham, pork sausage, pork chops, etc., or other unclean animals that Yahweh have forbidden us to consume? The Apostle Paul wrote, "Know you that you are the temple of Elohim, and that the spirit of Elohim dwells in you." So if you desire to live in harmony, learn not the ways of the heathen, for Yahweh has given the sun and the moon and the stars and even all the hosts of heaven to the nations to serve and worship. For in Isaiah 66:17, they that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the garden, behind one tree in the midst eating swine's flesh, an abomination, and the mouth shall be consumed together. Be you holy, for Yahweh is holy. Peace.
Yeah.
A faith. Men can't fit into chimneys, and deers can't fly. Trees belong outside the house, and Santa Claus is a lie.
Yahweh said in the Bible that we should not cut down a tree, bring it into our house, and put gold and silver decorations on it. He said that was wrong. Jeremiah chapter 10, verses 1-5.
What does having a Christmas tree have to do with getting presents and toys anyway? There is no Christ in Christmas.
When people think of Christmas, they think of Santa, Christmas trees, and the birth of Christ. Well, we know that Santa is a fake. Let's check out the trees and the birth of Christ part. Many years ago, thousands of years, before Christ was ever born, people were already decorating trees, worshiping trees, and exchanging gifts right around the day that Christmas is celebrated today. What does this tell us?
Christmas is not a celebration of Christ's birth.
There are no tooth fairies leaving money for you.
There are no jack-o'-lanterns to scare you at night. There are no leprechauns with a pot of gold. There are no baby cupids shooting people with arrows.
There are no two friends leaving money for you.
There are no baby New Year, the beginning of the New Year.
Yahweh gave us a list of rules to live by. All of these rules are found in the Ten Commandments. The rest are found in the first 5 books of the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. We must follow Yahweh's rules and not stories made up by people. These are the holy days that Yahweh told us to celebrate forever.
Passover feast.
Feast of Unleavened Bread. Feast of First Fruit. Feast of Pentecost.
Feast of Trumpets.
Day of Atonement.
And last but not least, Feast of Tabernacles.
Once again, peace, and peace from the God of Israel. You know, today, our people not knowing who they are as a nation, and by being taught and practicing various religions and cultures that we've learned from the nations, our people are being destroyed due to lack of knowledge that we've gleaned from our captors. So these things befall us because of our refusal to worship and serve Yahweh our Elohim in truth and in Yahweh's prescribed righteousness. What we have the tendency to do today is follow what our preachers say and don't study to show ourselves approved. And because of this, that word of mouth thing that we are practicing has gotten us into more trouble than we might be able, most of us as people will be able to get out of. And for this reason, we as a people are being slowly destroyed spiritually. Like Brother Saul said, it's not flesh and blood that we deal with, but powers and principalities and spiritual wickedness in exceedingly high places, simply because Lucifer was given 6,000 years to rule the earth, and Lucifer is truly ruling the earth today. But let me read something to you that was said to our fathers through the prophet Ezekiel. This is in Ezekiel 16th chapter, and it's a long chapter, so I'm just going to read part of this. Ezekiel 16, and I'm going to pick this up at verse 23. It says, and it came to pass after all of your wickedness, woe, woe, woe unto you, saith the Adonai Elohim, that you has also built unto you an eminent place, and has made you an high place in every street. And when we look around in our neighborhood, there is a Christian church on every corner of the streets. You have built your high places at the head of every way, and has made your beauty to be abhorred, and has opened your feet to everyone that passed by, and multiplied your whoredoms. You have also committed fornication with the Egyptians, your neighbors, greater flesh, and has increased your whoredoms to provoke me to anger. Behold, therefore I have stretched out my hand over you, and have diminished your ordinary food, and delivered you into the will of them that hate you, the daughters of the Philistines, and today we know that it's in the hands of the Gentiles. You have played the whore also with the Assyrians, because you was unsatiable, yes, you have played the whore with them, and yet could you not be satisfied. You have moreover multiplied your fornication in the land of Canaan unto Chaldea, and yet you was not satisfied herewith. How weak is your heart, said the Adonai Elohim, seeing you do all these things, the work of an imperialist, whorish woman, in that you build your eminent places in the head of every way, and make your high places in every street, and has been as the harlot, in that you scorn his hire. But as a wife that committeth adultery, which taketh strangers instead of her husband, they give gifts to all whores, but you give your gifts to your lovers, and hires them, that they may come unto thee on every side for your whoredoms. And the contrary is in you from other women in your whoredoms, whereof none follows you to commit whoredoms, and in that you givest rewards, and no reward is given unto you, therefore you are contrary. Wherefore, O harlot, hear the word of the Adonai. Thus saith the Adonai Elohim, because your filthiness was poured out, and your nakedness is discovered through your whoredom with your lovers, and with all the idols of your abomination, and by the blood of your children which I did give unto you, behold, therefore I will gather your lovers, with whom you have taken pleasure, all of them that you have loved, with all of them that you have hated, I will even gather them round about you, and will discover your nakedness unto them, that they may see all of your nakedness. And I will judge you as a woman that break wedlock and shed blood a judge. And I will give you blood in fury and jealousy. I will also give you into their hand, and they shall throw down your eminent places, and shall break down your high places, and they shall strip thee also of your clothes, and shall take your fair jewels, and leave you bare and naked. And verse 63 says, verse 60 says, nevertheless, I will remember my covenant with you in the days of your youth. I will establish unto you an everlasting covenant. This was the covenant that Christ sealed in his blood. This is why he said in St. Matthew 15 chapter, I'm not sent but to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Then you shall remember your ways, and be ashamed when you shall receive your sister, your elder sister, and your younger. And I will give them unto you for daughters, but not by your covenant. I will also establish my covenant with you, that you should no more break my covenant, and you shall know that I am Yahweh, that you mayest remember and be confounded, and never open your mouth any more because of your shame, when I shall be pacified toward you for all that you have done, saith the Adonai Elohim. So, as we see, the reason why our fathers was put in captivity to serve the God of the nations is simply because we served the God of the nations, and when we were in our own land, even in the New Testament, they was keeping a pagan ritual called Ashtaroth, which we know today to be Easter. And a lot of our people were keeping these things simply because it was the Romans that was keeping these things. And when we go back through our history among the nations, we can very well see that with each empire, the Babylonian Empire, the Medo-Persian Empire, the Greek and the Roman Empire, with each empire that came upon our people, pardon me, then truly we began to serve their gods. And we did the same thing over here. Because when you get back, especially the older people, this is why the scripture tell the younger people, ask your fathers and they will show you, and your elders and they will teach you. When you get back into the scripture and go back in our history in this country, all of the religious songs we sang were songs of deliverance back to the land of Israel. Yet in the 1940s, they took those Negro spirituals away from us and gave us gospel. And from that time, we as a people have been flying off to Never Never Land because of the things that excuse me, because of the things that we have been taught by the nation. This is why we keep the things that we do today, simply because that they came from the adversary, the devil, and we don't care. As long as we can have master to love us, to give us jobs and so forth and so on, and be out in front and guide everything for us as we follow along and take what the crumbs that fall off master's table. As long as these things take place, then truly we shall be in this bondage. But consider this. Yahweh told our people that we'd be in this captivity for 400 years. We know that the first slaves came over here in 1612. And when we get in the 7th chapter of Daniel and read Revelation's 13th chapter, we find out that the EU, the New World Order, is putting itself in place today. And we also know from reading the book of Revelation that when Satan gets thrown out of heaven in Revelation's 12th chapter, that he's coming to make war openly with us as a people. We can see these things upon the wings of the wind today simply because of the fact that we are being rejected by but we are rejected because of right now. The Scripture Christ says, he that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the church. Well, how can you go to church and read this much of the book and tell me that you have the truth in the Word of God. It's impossible to have the truth in the Word of God, because the Word of Yahweh started from Genesis, Genesis first chapter, and it ended up in Revelations chapter 22. And when you read Revelations chapter 21, it tells you that even the new city Jerusalem is going to have 12 gates. And at the gates, 12 angels, and names written thereon, which is the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel, right? Well, we have to ask ourselves, thank you very much. You have to ask ourselves, where is everybody else's gate? If you don't go into the holy city with the children of Israel, you have no gate to enter into the holy city. As a matter of fact, when you get in the book of Ezekiel and read chapter 40 up to the end of the chapter, it's the new temple that the Messiah is going to build in Jerusalem when he returns. And when you read it, it was set up just like the old temple was set up. All of the nations, none of the nations ever knew what went on in the sanctuary. Only the men of Israel could enter the sanctuary under the penalty of death. But Yahweh allowed, he had a section in the outer courts for the nations to come into, because he created all nations and he's going to save all nations, but not the way that man is telling us today. The way that